Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the March 28, 2023 meeting of the Design Review Board. It's a web-based meeting, so we are operating under the following procedures. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. The video recording will be available within 24 hours and will be posted on the Town of Waterford's Planning Department website. To ensure good sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute unless they are speaking. If an attendee creates an audio or video disruption, the Zoom moderator may place them on mute or remove them from the meeting if the disruption continues. We will not use a chat feature in this meeting. We appreciate your attendance. Should you have any questions about the process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And with that, I turn it over to the chair.
Good afternoon, Chairman John O'Neill. Call to order and appointment of alternates will not be necessary. We have 3 full-time members, Bob Nye and Joy. So item number 2, plan reviews, request of Stone Ridge RE LLC, owner and applicant for a coastal site plan review and site plan for business offices and storage warehouses at 21 Gurley Road. IP-1 zone in accordance with sections 13.1.2, 13.1.8, 22, 25.4 of the zoning regulations, and as shown on the plans entitled Stone Ridge Business Park, 21 Gurley Road, Waterford, Connecticut. All right. So, what do you have for us, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a partner and a land use attorney at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London. And as always, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. I represent this afternoon Stone Ridge RE LLC, which is a Connecticut limited liability company and the owner of approximately 22 acres of industrially zoned land at 21 Gurley Road here in Waterford. My client has submitted an application to the Planning and Zoning Commission for site plan and coastal area management site plan approval for a project that's called the Stone Ridge Business Park. It's a development that will consist of 6 buildings providing both offices and storage warehouses for small businesses and local startups at the site. This site is located within the IP-1 General Industrial Park Zone, which allows and is permitted as of right, subject to site plan approval, both business offices and storage warehouses. Joining me tonight, I've got Ellen Bartlett. Ellen Bartlett is the project civil engineer with CLA Engineers. I also have on the line Fred Marzek. He's the project architect. We'll be talking to you. Both Ellen and Fred will be presenting to you this afternoon. I'm going to try to provide you just a brief overview of the project. I'm going to try to highlight a few key aspects of the development and some of the basic compliance we have with the zoning regulations. We're really going to focus on the design, though, because this is the design review board. Ms. Bartlett is going to review existing conditions, a quick project layout, and some of the other engineering details of the project at a high level. And then Mr. Marzek is going to walk you through some of the architectural designs for the project for the office and warehouse buildings. We are scheduled to appear before the Planning and Zoning Commission this evening, and we're looking for an advisory opinion from your board to that body. Is it okay if I share a plan on the screen?
It is. Hang on.
Just need to be authorized to do so. Thanks.
All right, you should be ready to go.
Does everybody see a colored site plan with aerial photography embedded in it?
Yes.
Terrific.
Not now.
Not now?
No, it just went away. Okay,
You see it? Are you okay?
I'm good.
Terrific. The property before you is the 28.2-acre vacant parcel, which my client purchased in 2021. It's one of the westernmost parcels in the general industrial park zone, which runs along the entire southern edge of Route 95. The property has been zoned for industrial use for decades. It's been designated for industrial development in multiple iterations of the plan of conservation and development over that same time period. And while the parcel is currently vacant and heavily forested, the eastern portion of the property was the former site of the Waterford Almshouse, which is now demolished. You can see on the plan this sort of black polygon sort of toward the eastern end of the site. I'm using my cursor to show it here. That area is the identified archaeological site for the almshouse. We've designed the project to completely avoid that area, make no impact whatsoever to it. We are instead developing in the remaining western portion of the site. We also completed a subsurface investigation of the site for other historic resources in the area of development, and we're not able to locate any other identifiable resources as a result of that investigation. North of the site, I-95 runs along this northern boundary. It's located at quite a higher elevation. You might be able to see some of the topo lines on the plan. 95 is actually above this site, and between this site and 95 is a very wide right-of-way that's heavily forested with tall, mature, and thick vegetation. The parcel has a number of wetlands and watercourse areas. Those are the blue areas on the plan. And you can see we've developed the project to stay completely out of those areas. We're not impacting directly any wetlands or watercourses as a result of the project. We worked with the Conservation Commission closely, got a permit for them last year for the project. And we did that by using a variety of innovative stormwater design methods. The business park that we're proposing consists, as I said, of 6 buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These buildings would provide incubator space for small businesses that need office and warehouse space with convenient access to Route 95. These types of incubator, sort of industrial incubator developments are becoming popular again. They really support smaller independent companies and family businesses, and they provide flexible and customizable spaces that can be rented out at reasonable prices. Certainly, the plan of conservation and development supports this kind of development in this zone, especially focusing on small business development. As I said, also, this type of use is permitted in the underlying and general industrial park zone. The actual acreage of the buildings, the square footage of all 6 buildings combined is just over 65,000 square feet. So it's just about 1.5 acres on 22 acres of land. The property, the building 1 is accessed off Oil Mill Road, and building 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are accessed from 2 entrances on Gurley Road. There's 170 on-site parking spaces that are provided in the development. And all the industrial uses, the office and the warehouse uses, would all be located interior to the buildings. There's no outdoor activities, no outdoor storage, only designated vehicle parking in the outdoors to support those buildings. Couple things from a site development plan, and I know Ellen might mention this as well. Buildings 1 and 2, which are located closest to Oil Mill Road and Gurley Road, respectively. We've taken a lot of effort to try to landscape those buildings and those parking areas from the adjacent roads to create buffers and screening to those roads. We particularly made great attempts on Gurley Road to buffer building 2 out of respect for the adjacent neighbors across the street. We did that to protect their privacy, but also to self-contain the project on the site. Buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6 are located interior to the property up against 95. They won't be visible. These forested wetlands will remain forested, won't be visible from Gurley Road. In fact, will likely not be visible except for the very tops from Route 95 because of the topographic change and all the screening that exists along the highway. To the extent that these buildings are visible to the public in some manner, Mr. Marzek will go through his architectural plans. We have some color renderings for you as well. We've really tried to design high quality structures with some architectural features and some treatments that are attractive, but don't undermine the functional value of these buildings for industrial space. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ellen Bartlett. I'm going to sort of drive the presentation for her on terms of maps, but I have her sort of just walk you through the site plan and sort of expand a little bit on some of the introductory remarks I've made. Ellen?
Good evening. My name is Ellen Bartlett. I'm with CLA Engineers, and I'm recovering from strep throat last week, so I'm going to apologize if my voice starts to fail on me at some point. And fortunately, Bill kind of covered half of my presentation already, so I won't have to say as much. I did want to point out that building 1 is kind of separated from the rest of the development because there's a perennial stream that flows under I-95 and then crosses the site north to south and then continues on under Gurley Road. So it has its own access. Across from building 1 is a 200+ strip of undeveloped woodlands. So there are no residences or that are going to be impacted by this development. So we didn't go as heavy with the buffer landscaping there. On the south side of building 1, we left a 40-foot between the adjacent property owner. We left a 40-foot strip of untouched woodlands. And then we put in a dense evergreen buffer along there to protect them, so they won't even see the development. The site plan contains a very extensive landscape plan that was prepared by a licensed landscape architect, Dave McKinley, from Beta Group. We work closely with him, and his plans are sheet 7 and 8 of our site plan set, and they're also shown on this site plan. Bill, maybe we want to go to the next site plan because I think you can see the landscaping a little better. Is that possible to go to the second site plan?
Muted, Bill.
There you go. We can't hear you, Bill. I think you're on mute.
I'm putting it up right now.
There you go. Okay, thank you. This plan shows all the landscaping from the landscape plans. The planning plan uses native plant species to enhance the buildings and also to enhance the views from the highway, from the exterior roads, and also from neighboring properties. Extra care was spent at the road entrances to the property to provide shrubs, trees, and perennials that will have a varying display of color all different times of the year. A mix of pollinator plantings were added throughout the site to add additional color during the spring, summer, and especially in the fall to add beauty to the landscaping. As Bill mentioned, building 2 on Gurley Road, across the street, there are 3 residential properties. And what we've done there is we provided an earth berm that runs between our development and Gurley Road. And at the top of the berm, we've provided an evergreen buffer to provide a solid barrier from the existing neighborhood. The building 2 also sits down low in the site. So it's about 25 feet lower than Gurley Road. And so with the berm in between it and Gurley Road, it's really not going to be very visible from the road. That kind of describes the landscaping we did. The blue and pink areas are the stormwater treatment basins. There are 5 stormwater systems throughout the site that each one consists of a 4-bay and then an extensive water quality basin. And we've got a lot of, also in addition to the landscaping plan, we have a lot of rain gardens throughout the pavement areas to kind of break it all up and allow for infiltration. At this point, I was going to see if you have any questions on the site plan. Otherwise, maybe we want to look at the buildings.
If there's no questions, I'm going to turn it over to Fred Marzek to just walk you through the buildings. Fred, I have the color renderings of the buildings available to show, and I can also bring up your complete building plans with floor plans as well, if no matter, regardless of what you want to do.
My thought was just stay on the building elevations. It's the cleanest way to see everything.
All right, so
So
let me just stop sharing this, and then I'll put up buildings 1 and 2 first.
All right, thank you. Everybody see this? Okay, so building 1 and 2 has been explained by both Bill and Ellen are along the road surfaces, and the request was to try to get the site to not look like the standard metal building industrial sites you see all over the place. So there's the pre-engineered metal buildings are typical low slope, 2 to 3 inches of slope per roof. We use colored siding, some residential features to try to get a softer appearance, and Ellen has worked to try to get some planting to kind of keep the building there, but not make it so dominant and whatnot. We've tried to get some treatment in by both vertical and horizontal sidings on building 1, canopies, cloth canopies, whatnot. Building number 2 is a little cleaner, but similar in its format. Canopies, the doors, the windows, those giving you the feeling of somewhat rural and residential characters, but on a metal building, they are what they are. The balance of the buildings, 4, 5, and 6 are a bit more industrial looking, a little less because they're farther back and not as visible to everybody. But again, it's a similar character. Could you throw up one of those 2 renderings that were done?
Sure, I can throw one up right now.
Okay.
This is, I'm going to be putting up buildings 3 and 4, and then I can also put up 5 and 6.
That's okay. Thank you.
Here's buildings 3 and 4.
Yeah, we've tried to play some games with doing roof slopes that were a little different from metal buildings. Here we have a hip roof and we have gables everywhere. Or, you know, when you look at the building plans and all the tenant spaces, some of them have breakouts, bump outs, just to give some shapes and heights that help this thing look a little bit simpler and cleaner without being just all painted steel, monochromatic in its world. So I think, again, it's a metal building. It is what it is, and we're just trying to get it to be a better fit inside of the spaces. The landscaping and everything that's been put to it site-wise will really help downplay the metal building, and what features architecturally we put out there should help soften any negative aspects to them. Mine is relatively clean.
I'm going to put up the last rendering too that I have.
Okay, thank you. Again, you can see some of the buildings are fairly big, so it's hard to hide some of the features. But building number 6 is broken up into 3 stages, 2 different roof heights, some roof cupolas, just again to help hide or reduce the impact of a large building. Vertical siding on this one, it's a little simpler in its design.
Yeah, I think one of the things too to stress, and I think Ellen really pointed this out in her presentation, is this site was used for gravel excavation for the construction of I-95. And so many of the wetlands that are on the site are actually the result of borrow pits from when gravel was taken for that construction process. But the site itself, as a result, is lower than both the highway and Gurley Road. It's really sort of a hole, in lack of a better term, a depression. And so what we're trying to do is put the buildings in that depression and properly buffer and screen them so that you don't see, particularly buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are up against the highway. Those are really tucked into this depressional area. And we took a little bit more care and a little bit more effort on architectural features for the buildings closer to the roads, buildings 1 and 2. Ellen or Fred, do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
Not from my perspective, thank you.
I did want to point out that when we're all said and done and finished, this site is only going to have 9 acres of development out of the 22, so that actually 9 acres of disturbance, so only be 5 acres of development when we're done. So there's going to be a lot of areas left in their natural state throughout the site.
Yes, Ms. Merrill?
Go ahead.
Are a lot of the existing stone walls on Gurley Road going to remain?
Yes, the majority of them. They'll be opened up for the 2 access roads coming in.
Obviously.
But other than that, the stone walls will remain, and there's also stone walls that run through the middle of the site that the majority of them will stay
Right.
because there's wetlands near them.
And signage? Did you address signage?
We're going to have signs on the buildings. They'll be, and they're shown on some of the elevation plans that we have. They'll be directional. The buildings will list what's in each building as you drive up to it. But we're not looking at a lot of signage out on the road.
So, but there'll be something to identify what number on the road and,
Yes, there will be a sign saying Stone Ridge Business Park at the entrances. But other than that, it's not going to list all the, it's not going to be a big sign that lists everything that's in it. As you
Right.
drive through, there'll be signs on the buildings telling you what's located in each building. So there'll only be a single sign at the entrance that says Stone Ridge Business Park. Simple sign.
okay, and do you have a rendering of that or?
We don't at this time,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think our effort was to try to minimize as much sort of improvement along the roadways because of the concerns of neighbors and the fact that there are residential, there's a residential neighborhood to the southwest of the site. We really want to try to encapsulate the industrial uses interior to the site, and we've really minimized the amount of improvements, except for access roads, into the site to get into the central area.
I just had a question. It's really not relevant to the design, but Bill, you mentioned something about there was some archaeological investigation that didn't show anything. Who was responsible for that? I'm just curious.
Sure. Mr. Nye, the developer hired David George, who is a certified archaeologist on the state list, to complete a reconnaissance study and excavation consistent with SHPO's guidelines. And so that was done last year. The project does disturb, as Ellen said, it's going to disturb about 9 acres of land, which will trigger a general stormwater permit from the Connecticut DEP. And I'm sure you're aware, SHPO has the right to review and comment on those general stormwater permits. And so we did a pre-screening with SHPO, and they asked us to, they noted the fact that we were avoiding the defined archaeological site altogether on the eastern end of the site, but they did ask us to do subsurface investigation over the remainder of the site that's proposed to be developed. And so Mr. George conducted that investigation and submitted a report with his findings.
Okay. I'm also happy that Joy brought up about the walls along Gurley Road. As you probably know, that was that road goes back, to the 1600. So that's good.
Yeah, I think we've been trying to find a balance. I mean, and Mr. Nye, my client's position is this is industrially zoned land and he wants to develop it for industrial use, but we're also trying to find a balance with the surrounding neighborhood and sort of the historic context of the area and the property, so that I'm a true believer in that you can have your cake and eat it too. So I think you can do a responsible development on this property, responsible in terms of the historic resources, responsible in terms of the environmental resources, but also provide for some much needed economic development on this piece. I'm really excited about the project because There's not right now in the inventory in southeastern Connecticut, these incubator spaces are basically full at this point. These are places where family businesses, these are where the small startups begin their sort of journey. And I've got a lot of small business clients in my firm that I work for who are constantly looking for these kinds of spaces. And it may be just some warehouse space to begin with. It may be a warehouse in a small office, but it's the kind of space that allows a company to start and to grow and then to move on to its own facility at a different location. So I think the ability to provide this is a great economic development opportunity for the town. There's just not a lot of this right now that's available in this type of configuration. If you look at the architectural plans that Mr. Marzek proposed too, these spaces are really flexible. And so, you could have somebody take an entire building if it met their needs, or maybe have it broken up into 3, 4, 5 different tenants. And that kind of flexibility, I think, is really interesting, and it'll provide for a lot of different opportunities for new businesses starting up in Waterford. And I think that's good for the town.
Well, certainly I agree with that. I also appreciate Ellen, your efforts, and for the water resources and the archaeological, all of that, and obviously some effort has been put into this, which I appreciate.
And I appreciate the plantings and the native plants. I think that's really great. Thank you.
Yeah, we actually worked very closely with the neighbors across the street on Gurley Road. So that earthen berm with the landscaping that you see there was actually designed in consultation with the neighbors. We actually met with their representative and went through several iterations and got to a place where, ideally, I think they would have loved to have the land always be undeveloped, but they realized that we had a right to develop it and said, listen, can we come to some common ground on what we can do to buffer and screen it? And so, my client was very open to trying to meet them halfway. And so I'm really happy with the compromise that we were able to reach, because it allows us to develop the property, but allows them to have their privacy too.
I agree. I think it is a decent compromise, and along those lines, I appreciate everyone's efforts and the inherent honesty in that about trying to hide these buildings. They are large warehouses, and while the property is zoned industrial, the feeling of the property is rural and residential when you drive through it. So I do appreciate the efforts to try to minimize the impact as much as possible, because these are big, they're warehouses. They're not pretty. You can put a cupola on it, but that cherry doesn't make it a sundae. Along those lines, the only couple of the one concern I have is the fabric awnings. I'd be much happier to see something more durable. I'm very familiar with the awning business. I know they don't last very long, and deteriorating awnings are a real eyesore, particularly what would be seen from the road on building 1. The other concern I have, I don't see anything on the site plan for lighting. Maybe I'm just missing it, but I'm always curious as to what this is going to look like at night. How much light is going to be thrown off by the any street lighting or building security lighting.
We went with a minimal lighting plan, but enough to serve the needs. There is 0 light leaving the site. We had them look very seriously at that. All the lighting is 20 feet in height max. We have some building mounted lighting. Everything's shielded and downloaded, but the big point is we don't have lighting right at the entrance. It's set back enough that by the time it hits Gurley Road, there's 0 foot candles leaving the site, and also on Old Mill Road also. The plans show the lighting and the details, but it's not going to be 50-foot high lights blaring out. It's, like I said, maximum 20 feet high, all shielded and all set back from the road so that you're not going to, it's not going to be lit up like, you know, too brightly.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I guess I've said my piece. Any other comments?
All set.
Joy?
Good.
Okay, you're good? All right. Very good. Any other
Can I
comments?
just ask one thing?
Certainly.
Relative to the awnings now, that the chair had mentioned that, would you be amenable to changing the material to something more durable?
Fred, do you want to answer that?
That's fine. I just thought of the cloth cover because I figured they could change them over the years and have a better capability of some design features. But if you we can put a hard canopy up there. We'll just have to find ways to mount them back to the ground. The fabric canopies can be wall mounted and then don't take much, but the metal ones with subframe will probably require some support structure on grade. But I'm sure we can look into it and come up with an opinion and an idea for you.
All right. I appreciate that. My father was in the awning business. I'm very familiar with, how wonderful they can be, but what happens to them after they've been neglected for a few years.
Yep, that's true. But that's true of just about everything also.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
Okay.
All right. What was the note about the?
Were there any other, Mark, were there any other comments that
There were none.
other than the awning? Okay.
Yeah, right. I hadn't, at least during our conversation.
Right.
Nothing.
All right. Yeah, we addressed the stone walls and lighting, landscaping, all that. So
I think Commissioner Merrill had a.
yes, sorry.
I guess this is kind of quirky, very quirky, but perhaps since it's called Stone Ridge, perhaps some of the stones that are moved from the walls when you make those entrances, they could be incorporated as the base of the new sign. Or around it or something.
We certainly could look into that. There is a lot of stone on the property.
Having them removed, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of loose glacial stone on the property, so we'd be happy to look at that and consider it. I think it's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. All right. Awnings, stones, any other comments or concerns before we go to a vote? No? All right.
I'll move acceptance with the fact to include looking into Joy's notion about the possible reuse of the
Sure.
stones, although certainly
Just the ones from the wall.
as Bill pointed out, there's no shortage of stones there. And
Certainly not.
and then the awning,
Mhm.
I
To
think that
durable material.
durable material, so I'd like to include those two items in the motion.
Okay, very
If
good.
that's acceptable,
Yeah.
so move that.
Very good.
Second.
Second, Joy. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
very much.
Very good.
Appreciate the time this evening, and I know it's always tough coming out for these review meetings, but thank you for accommodating us, particularly virtually. So hope everyone has a great evening, and John and Mark, we'll see you in 2 hours.
Sure. Okay.
Take care, everybody.
Very good. Thank you.